Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, The New Retirement, with guest speaker Virginia Macali, founder of High Point Transitions. My name is Eric Danielson. I'm the Communication and Client Services Administrator for AFP. We will be recording this webinar and recording future webinars as well. We will host a Q&A session afterwards, and we will stop recording before the Q&A. The video for this webinar will be posted on our website within the next few days. And to make sure this runs smoothly, we've muted all your mics and until the end of the presentation. If you do have any questions during, feel free to put them into the Zoom chat. Just click the little chat bubble icon in your Zoom menu. It'll open the chat and you can type in any suggestions, questions, or comments that you may have. But if you do come up with any ideas for future webinars, we encourage you to post them in the chat as well. Or if you come up with them after the webinar, you can always email them or give us a call or something like that. But with that being said, I will hand things off to Terry and Virginia.
Right. Thank you, Eric. And we're really delighted this month to have Virginia Macali presenting, and she is a certified retirement coach. So it's a little different than looking at the financial stuff. We're looking at all the other things that you need to be considering when you're transitioning into retirement. So with that, I think we can kind of go to the next slide. Yeah. And just take it away, Virginia. I'll kind of pop in here and there.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Terry. So the topic for today is the new retirement. When Serena Williams stepped down from her legendary tennis career, she declared, "I'm not retiring, I'm evolving." So I offer this webinar in that spirit. Terry and Nathan at AFP deal with the financial aspects of retirement, and I deal with the lifestyle. What do you want? What do you want to see happen? Where do you want to live? How do you want to live your life? We're going to be talking about those things today. And my aim is for this information to be helpful no matter where you are in the retirement process, whether you're thinking about retirement, you're retired, semi-retired, or even unretired. So I hope you can find something that helps you to live your life in a better, more meaningful way. Once upon a time, during the agricultural age, there was no retirement. People worked until they couldn't work anymore. In the late 1800s, retirement benefits were instituted to offer financial support for older members of society. U.S. pension programs put the retirement age at 65, which we still have now. And the concept of retirement, I call the old retirement, was a date certain, so you work until retirement, and then you didn't work afterwards. But that's really an anachronism. Some people certainly continue to work after retirement. Some people retire and then come back to work. So there are some people who do traditional retirement, but there's no one way to do retirement. And we'll be talking about that. But retirement's more like a process than as a date certain.
Yeah, that's very true.
And today's retirement, I kind of want to think of it as your new retirement. And it's the new retirement because this baby boomer generation has increased longevity, health, and wealth that prior generations didn't have. This slide, it really shows the longevity revolution. So through 99% of human history, the average life expectancy was, and I'll fill in the blank for you, 18 years.
Wow.
At the start of the 20th century, life in the US, life expectancy was 47. Today, it's around 77. If you are around 65 now, your life expectancy, you could live well beyond your 80s.
And that's why in a lot of our projections from a financial perspective, we are stretching people out to 95 and 100 these days. And it could be more depending upon one's makeup genetically.
Yes, exactly, exactly. I know there's Dr. Roizen from the Cleveland Clinic wrote a book called The Great Age Reboot, and he makes a very strong case for anyone that's approximately 65 now to live and to live well and healthy to 110.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that is that really got my attention.
Yeah.
And what, yeah. So why this is important is, if you spent 30 years or so working, you may have 30 or more years in retirement. So it really brings the question to the forefront of, how do I want to spend my time? How will I fill my time? What's important to me? What makes life worth living? So these aren't casual questions.
Yeah. Very true.
Next slide. Yes, thank you. What's the biggest difference between people over 60 versus a generation ago? And this data, the next couple slides, are from the Age Wave survey, and that came out so recently, just within the last month. Really great information. So the survey was saying, boy, people are saying, boy, more active. That's what today's retirees are all about. And more open-minded, more curious. So that says a lot about this generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which are the baby boomers.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And how do they describe retirement today? Boy, 66% say it's a new chapter of life. And that's how I often refer to retirement, is a new chapter. But there are other ways to talk about it. It's the next avenue or refinement or the third. But there's something about that that really captures the essence of, here's a new time of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And continuation of what life is, 11%, and a time to wind down 6%. So that's interesting. I know that when we have people come in and we're talking about retirement, many times the idea of that initial move from work to retirement is one where people are entering what the phrase of the go-go phase of life, and that can last for a period of time. And we sometimes have people spending money more then than they do while they were working. And then they can move into a slow go phase where they're not traveling as much or have as many home improvements and that type of thing. Could be the lowest expense phase in retirement. And then we could see people move into the no-go phase, which could actually be the most expensive phase and the one that most people might not be as ready for, but it's where medical expenses kick in, and it could be their most expensive phase depending. So just there's three phases within the time that you get into that next chapter.
Yeah, that's a great description of those phases, Terry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Life in retirement, it can look so many different ways. I pulled this photo off Facebook. So this is one of my friends with her husband and another couple. They're enjoying, they're in Europe. I'm not exactly remembering where. But what I notice in this photo is they're healthy, they're happy, they're active, they're curious, they're seeing something new, they're doing something that's fresh. And that's just one version of retirement. I'm going to give a couple other examples. A couple with people who work or continue to work in retirement. One was a professor at OSU for decades. And when she retired, she started a real estate business. So very, very different work. Another is an attorney who retired and started the Cristo Rey School. So those were people that continued to work. A couple that did not continue to work, one couple, when they retired, they put fitness as their priority to get fit for travel. Their aim was to visit all of the national parks and they were, physically fit to do it. They also, when they were not traveling, were reading about the area of the park, whether that was historical fiction or nonfiction, to kind of prepare and orient themselves and really learn some history about the area. And another friend had a long career in the Peace Corps and human services, always serving people, met people all over the world. When she retired, she sold her home in Chicago and moved to a summer resort community in Ohio, where her family also had places to live. And she built a house from scratch.
Hmm.
And what she enjoyed was inviting people that she met all over the world to come and visit for a week or two and spend time together, have deep conversations. And she made definitely a life worth living.
Oh, that's a great idea. A lot of variation there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
3 keys to thrive in this time, whether you're close to retirement or in retirement, any of that. Number 1, social connection. Very, very much a key. What is your social plan? Even Blue Zones, they have done research all over the world to what lends to longevity, happiness, and health. Social connection is definitely the number 1. So it's important to cultivate and nurture your relationships, whether that's family, friends, communities. It might even be your friends from work. Do you still want to continue to see them? 42% of retirees think their social network would increase, but retirees who were interviewed said 84% said they saw a decrease. So it's an area to really pay attention to.
Yeah.
Number 2 is structure. Work naturally structures our days, our weeks, our years. We know what time we need to get up, how we need to get to work. Of course, that changed a bit from COVID with so many people working from home. But, even what time you take lunch or when you work out, and that structure and that rhythm all was kind of invisible and automatic. So when you think about retirement, what are you going to do at 9 o'clock on Monday morning?
Yeah. Got to fill in the blank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I know Joan Rivers used to say the scariest thing in the world was a blank calendar.
That's.
And I think that applies to retirees too.
Yeah. And that brings up the point. A lot of times people will say, you're not retiring from something, you need to be retiring to something.
Yes. And we also say, can you retire with something? So maybe don't postpone working out until you retire.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. And then the third thing I say is soul. So what I mean by soul is what's meaningful to you, what's satisfying, where do you find purpose? So those are deeper values, and a lot of that was provided in a work setting, because most people work in areas only that they're interested in, that there's some kind of a heart connection, there's some kind of a passion, there's some kind of a motivation for the topic and the subject matter. So, as you retire, whether you're going to work or not work, what are the things that are meaningful, satisfying? Where do you find purpose? What do you value? What are some of your skills? And how do you want to serve or use all of your experience?
Yeah, and that's very true, because finding that purpose, or several purposes, it doesn't have to be just one. It's important.
Yes. And how ready are you? How ready are you? And the next slide will describe that a little bit further. My colleague, Jan Cullinane, really boiled it down to this. 1, do you have enough? And what she's talking about here is really, what Terry talks about. Do you have enough money? Do you have enough finance saved? Do you have a pension? Do you have investments? Do you have insurance? Well, that is really answering the financial question. Historically, that was really how the extent of retirement planning. But retirement planning today goes further than that. The second question, have you had enough? I think this is a great question because have you had enough of the workplace or supervising others? Have you had enough of working in a structure? Have you had enough that day to day, 5 days a week or more for some people? Or some attorneys that I've worked with, have you had enough incivility? Have you had enough mergers? Have you had enough technical upgrades? So lots of things can become a catalyst for your move.
Oh, that's a great thought. Yeah.
And do you have enough? So this question starts to turn the corner a little bit to be considering, okay, thinking about what you want from retirement. Do you have enough meaningful activities? Do you have enough of a schedule and structure? Do you have enough agreement with your partner or spouse about what this time of life is going to look like? So I have one example that illustrates that. I was doing some work at the Ronald McDonald House and met Bruce. Bruce had a career in communications and a corporate environment. Before he retired, his wife said, Bruce, you could do anything you want for the first 2 weeks of retirement, but after that, you need to find something to do and somewhere to go. And he took that very seriously. He did research on nonprofit organizations in Central Ohio and contacted, I think, 5 or 6 of them to offer his hobby, his avocation of taking photographs at events.
Ah.
And that's how I met him at Ronald McDonald. Once a week, he would go to Ronald McDonald House and take photographs of families there.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a different way of flipping things around, isn't it?
Truly.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are great questions. Same question, but looking for a different answer based upon what you're trying to find.
Yes. Yes. People often ask me how to get started. One, I say set aside time. Put yourself on airplane mode. And what I mean by that, we all know what that means with our cell phones now. It's a big do not disturb sign. And maybe that's once a month you take a morning off, or once a week, an hour. Maybe you go on retreat. Maybe you take a vacation. Maybe you take a weekend to talk over things with your partner or spouse. But kind of dedicating time, because none of this happens overnight.
Yeah. Yeah, you almost have to make an appointment with yourself, don't you? I mean,
That's a great way to
put
put
it
it.
on the
Yes.
calendar and say, this is going to be my time to focus on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And start to gather and consult with your advisory team. So your financial advisors, they're at the center of this because of the first enough question. And your advisors will be tracking all of that, and they can help you see the financial picture much more clearly. But also health professionals, if there any aspect of your health that you need to be paying attention to. You want to see a counselor, you want to work with a retirement coach to really focus in on your strengths and values and get clear on what you want to do next. Do you want one of your colleagues to be one of your great advisors? Maybe you have someone they're really rocking retirement and you want their help. And then research and conversations. And I know Terry did a segment, one of these webinars on retirement readiness, which that's available on the website. and really start with some conversations and doing some research. So starting with conversations with your partner, with your spouse, maybe with some of your work colleagues, with other friends who are retired, whose retirements work and don't work. So you're gathering information. Maybe you want to do some Google research, some simple things of some interests that you've had, some things that are catching your mind. So those are some ways to get started. And it might be, okay, I want to research where to live.
Yeah.
Or intergenerational businesses.
Yeah.
So those are just some ideas.
I have a friend who I noticed on Facebook, but they've been doing their genealogy studies. And so their whole family, and I don't mean just him, his wife and kids, but his siblings. I think there's about 25 of them. They have gone over to Germany to meet up with some distant relatives that they've been communicating with recently. They've connected. And so now they're going over to meet them. And I thought that is just such a cool thing. I remember him talking about it a few years ago and their process of going through this, but just kind of identifying what are your roots potentially and where does that take you? And then actually meeting some actual relatives that you're related to somewhere else. I thought that was kind of interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very creative.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all good points.
Yeah. So retirement planning does take time, but here's a quick and easy way to get started, and I call it the index card plan. And I have my little card here. I don't know if you can see that. So, and the first block is your curious list. And I always invite people to just start a curious list. Anything that it could be mildly curious. What captures your attention? You could see something on TV, come across something on Facebook, overhear a conversation, see a billboard, read a blog, hear a podcast. Just start, and you don't have to analyze them, just keep a list. But you can start with this list, just make a rectangle on your paper right now and put down 3 things that you're curious about. 2, people I want to spend time with. List the names. Maybe it's people in your family. Maybe it's people you haven't seen, friends from high school you haven't seen in a long time. People that share your interests. Maybe there's a club, a community. So people, that goes back to the social piece that we talked about a few minutes ago. Hopes and dreams. It's not exactly a bucket list, but what are some of the things that you long to do or that you've postponed are really meaningful to you? List 3 of those. And then the last is concerns. What concerns do you have about this next chapter of life? Maybe it's where will I live, or how does Medicare work, or how do you sign up to take classes at a university? What's on your mind? What concerns you? And then after you have your concerns, flip your card over and list a couple action steps. So maybe it's calling the Social Security office or doing some research on something.
Yeah.
So this card will be a little jumpstart and something that you can hold on to and expand. But it starts a thinking process, and you might be surprised that things start coming to you, or you come across things, or you'll be in interesting conversations. So it gets things rolling.
Yeah. And I think the more you are open-minded to being open to that, the easier those thoughts start gelling within you. So if you're aware that you're thinking this way, then it allows you to think that way, if that makes sense. It gives you that permission to say, I'm allowed to not be so narrow in my thinking, but I'm allowing myself to be more open.
Yes, so much permission to explore.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Great ideas, really.
And then if you want to do something more formal, there are wonderful assessments. One is the Retirement Intelligence, RQ, that assesses your knowledge about the retirement transition itself.
Hmm.
For example, did you know that retirement is in the top 10 most stressful life transitions
Mhm.
that you can have?
Yeah.
Did you know about the dark side of retirement? Do you know what your strengths are for making the retirement transition? And then the life options profile, this is a different assessment, but it's looking at all of these life dimensions. If you've ever done the wheel of life, I think Terry does something similar to this in her work, but it looks at um, career and work, health and wellness, finance and insurance, family and relationships, leisure and social, purpose and meaning. And it's great. It's color coded because everything in green, that shows your strengths that you're taking into this. And then yellow, kind of a mid-range. Red are, boy, these are some areas that may have been your blind spots, and it might pay to focus on them. So it's really great feedback if you want a more comprehensive view.
Oh, that's wonderful. Where did people tap into these, Virginia?
They can find them on my website,
Okay.
or they can contact me. I'm certified in both of these.
Okay.
So we're talking about this planning phase taking some time, and we talked the first phase, excuse me, is explore, and we've talked about different ways to explore, from the curiosity list to conversations. And during this time, you know, you're casting a wide net, you're being curious, you're being open. And then a couple of those things, maybe one or two on that explore list, capture your attention and you want to experiment. And, you know, it's really a low risk, no risk experiment that you can do to see if something might be catching your attention. So if you're thinking about moving across country to be close to your children and grandchildren, maybe you want to spend a couple weeks or a month there first to just try it out. And then 3 is to create a flexible plan. Written plan is best, just like with your financial plan. But it's not cast in stone. It sets a direction, it sets a path. And life changes, you change, you'll be making additions, corrections, you'll course correct along the way. So we make it flexible, not rock hard.
Yeah, not rigid. Yeah.
Not a rigid plan at all. And all of this is really designed to help you live your best life. So happy to open to any questions.
Yeah. So Virginia, people can contact you, and can you work with them individually? I know you sometimes have some group programs people can go to too.
I do. I offer a free focus group for women in retirement a couple times a year. But mostly right now, I work either with individuals or through groups and organizations.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think the information is invaluable because oftentimes we will, from our perspective, put somebody through a process and financially they're looking good and they can retire. But if they don't take this next step of really understanding what they're walking into once they move into retirement, it can be mentally a very challenging time. It could be emotionally just a downward spiral for some people if they have not really fully prepared for what's coming next. So the two go hand in hand. You can't do one and think you're fine there and then just jump off that diving board and think all's going to be well when you fall into the water of retirement, so to speak. So we really appreciate what you do. It's invaluable, I think, to people.
Thank you. Yes, it's the financial fits in with the lifestyle, and that creates one whole, and we
Right.
have the same goal.
Exactly. Makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you. That's our lovely disclaimer.